I'm back.
It's Brimstone.
Yeah, right, Brimstone.
Well, hello everyone. I have returned, Austin the Brimstone, collecting all things furry and fantasy. I wasn't expecting to take that long of a break, but what can I say? Life happens, and life can be busy. At least I was able to squeeze in going to the Renaissance Fair. That was a lot of fun. But now we're back here in the room, which, quite hilariously, I have already redone, despite doing that 2-part room tour. So, go figure. I'll need to make another room tour, such as life. So today I thought we'd try a completely new type of video. Kind of a top 5 list, but not in particular order. And, well, not really anything special with the 5 items. So, this isn't a top 5 or top 10 Shrek Toys list. As a matter of fact, we're only scratching the surface on things Shrek to collect. We all know they made an absolute metric ton of Shrek product. As you can see, I am displaying some Shrek products, modeling some right here. You can see I have my new Shrek t-shirt I bought, and it says, "Get Ogre It," with Shrek laying down. I bought that at Kohl's, and then I have my Shrek knit beanie here, which is quite fashionable, if I say so myself. So this is kind of a new series. It's just called 5 blank you will like. So I can just talk about toys I like and bring up interesting and weird things I know about toys and collectibles. Again, this is not a definitive list. This is not the history of Shrek toys, although I would like to make that type of video someday. We're just going to talk about 5 Shrek toys in my collection that I think are neat. And maybe if this works out well, we'll do 5 Zootopia toys that I think you will like.
It's called a hustle, sweetheart.
So first up, we have this figure of the dragon from Shrek, Donkey's lovely wife, who is simply known as Dragon. It's a beautifully detailed, large action figure. She is nicely articulated. If you bend the foot down, she kind of attacks. And the face is really nicely detailed. This is a really solid action figure, but the reason I picked it isn't just because it's a good toy, but because it's my favorite Shrek toy growing up. I had this dragon figure. I have a carded example here. This is what the figure looked like when it came out, and this is exactly how it looked when I got it for my 4th birthday in June 2004. My parents threw this big old Shrek party. It was supposed to be a Scooby-Doo party, but then I saw Shrek in May, and little 4-year-old me was like, no, Scooby-Doo is dead to me. He's dead. That dog is dead. It's all ogre now. All I care about is the ogre. So, because my parents love me, they bought me the complete Shrek toy line, despite the fact that we didn't have any money at the time. I got the action figures of Shrek, Fiona, Donkey, and Puss in Boots. I even got the Far, Far Away playset with all of the mini micro figures that came with it. But this figure in particular, it stuck out to me. And maybe it has to do with my beginning interest in dragons. I quite love dragons now, and this is the earliest dragon toy I can remember. Or maybe it's because, for a 4-year-old kid, I was pretty smart when it came to toys, and I did not mix toy lines or scales. I was very particular, even when I was little. For example, the Star Wars action figures and the Star Wars micro machines that I had did not mix. They were separate toys, and I did not just bang toys together. When I played, I had these very particular, long and elaborate storylines, and they were usually filled with all sorts of drama and murder and romance, and man, I was a weird kid. But I remember these Shrek figures kind of bothering me because they were not to scale. So you had Shrek, Fiona, Puss in Boots, Donkey, and this dragon, like I said, right? As action figures. But you were missing key characters. There was no Prince Charming, no Fairy Godmother, no Lord Farquaad, no bad guys, right? But that micro Far, Far Away playset did include the bad guys, and Far, Far Away, the playset. So I ended up playing with that toy more than the actual Shrek action figures. And even though they were tiny, well, I was a tiny kid, so the figures were pretty big to me at the time. Go figure. And this dragon, as a kid, I knew did not scale with my action figures, but it did scale really nicely with those micro figures. So this would be my dragon when I played with my micro Shrek figures. And I would make her attack like so. Oh wait, that activates the wings. See, this figure's got a lot of action features. Like this. And I would make her eat the Prince Charming and Fairy Godmother figures during my Shrek adventures. So I thought it was pretty cool that the action figure line included a figure that actually went with the micro line. And in retrospect, I can't help but wonder if this dragon was actually intended to be a part of the micro line and not an action figure. I mean, don't you think it's odd how they shoved this thing into a card back? Like, I admit it's a pretty impressive toy for a $10 action figure, and they had to literally break her in half to get her to fit. When you open this toy, you actually have to assemble her. So, I gotta admit, pretty impressive. It's a cool figure. I really, really like it. And definitely one of my favorites of the Shrek 2 toy line. So this one sticks out to me. There was an even better dragon toy that shipped with the original Shrek movie by McFarlane. A really beautiful, almost statue-like dragon that's got her chandelier collar on. But I can't afford that figure. That's way beyond my price range. That is an expensive toy to find not broken. I mean, even this one, I don't have a wings. And this is still like a $30, $35 action figure. People like these Shrek toys, what can I say? So, yeah, that's the dragon from Shrek 2, a toy that is very near and dear to me. Brings back good memories of playing with my Shrek toys. Another Shrek toy that I did have was this Shrek action figure from Shrek the Third. This would have been pretty late into my Shrek mania. By 2007, I was really losing interest in Shrek, and I had mostly moved on to Star Wars, because 2007, if you were a Star Wars collector, that was an amazing time. They were releasing top-notch action figures, and they were doing fan events and conventions. It's considered the golden age of Star Wars collecting at this point, so it makes sense why I dropped it. Not to mention, Shrek the Third, while not a terrible movie, just doesn't have the magnitude that Shrek 2 has. Especially to a kid, it's not nearly as interesting. But this Shrek figure, I do quite remember. I liked that he was in scale with my Star Wars figures. He's a little bigger, but still big enough that he could nicely sit in my Star Wars cantina and become a bounty hunter target for Boba Fett. But also because it's a really nice Shrek figure. Look at the detail on this guy. They got the color green down to a T, which, if you collect Shrek stuff, man, do they use a lot of different shades of green and get them all wrong. Even this hat is not the correct shade of green. But this one, if you look at the movie case right there, it's pretty good. They even have detailing and texture on his tunic, which is really, really nice. The colors are great. Articulation is not the best. He just moves at the arm. I mean, that's it. But, I mean, what else is Shrek gonna do, right? He does have a button. He used to speak at one point, but he no longer speaks. And here's the kicker. Are you ready for the kicker? This is a kid's meal. This is a McDonald's Happy Meal. Yeah, this 6-inch action figure was given away with your food. At one point, and kids today watching may not know this, but Happy Meals, like kids' meals, like the stuff you get with your food that you immediately donate to Save Us Thrift, used to be real toys. Yeah, in the 2000s, we got cool stuff. We got Shrek articulated action figures. They even did Pixar articulated action figures. Like there was a Mike and Sully, I remember, that were 6 inches, that were really, really impressive, that were almost to scale with the Shrek. So they were doing DreamWorks and Pixar action figures with your food. They were doing Tony Hawk action figures that came with skate park playsets. Like, I don't know what happened in the 2000s, but McDonald's really decided to up their Happy Meal game. And thankfully, Shrek came at the zenith of that, being an icon of the 2000s. And pretty much all of these Shrek kids meals gave us these wonderful Shrek action figures. It's almost depressing to the point where the Shrek Happy Meal toys are more cohesive and complete than the figure lines. So if you collected the Shrek the Third line, and later the Shrek 4 line and the Puss in Boots line, you can collect all of the Shrek universe in this Happy Meal scale, and have a more complete line than the action figure line. But thankfully, since they all 6-inch kind of Marvel Legends scale, they all scale well with the Hasbro and McFarlane figures, giving you a nice complete collection of Shrek figures. Not the most articulated, but for a kid's meal, that's pretty damn good. So yeah, this is a good figure. This is how we had it back in my day. Nowadays, Happy Meals kinda suck. Okay, one more Shrek action figure before we move on to some oddities. And this one is from McFarlane Toys, who made by far the nicest Shrek toys. They made the entire line for the first Shrek movie, and the figures they made were unbelievable. To this day, I think they're some of the best 6-inch action figures ever made. I really need to, collect this entire line, but they're pricey and collectible. People know how good these figures are. Now, this particular figure here was the last figure released in the McFarlane Shrek line. As a matter of fact, he was packaged as a Shrek 2 figure, even though Hasbro owned the rights to Shrek figures. So, if you're McFarlane Toys, and you lose the Shrek license to Hasbro, who made crummier toys, what do you do? How do you get around that? Well, you have to find what's called a license workaround. So McFarlane was told they can't make Shrek action figures for Shrek 2. However, McFarlane did have the license for NASCAR at the time. They made a lot of NASCAR figures. So McFarlane made a lot of NASCAR toys in the 2000s, and I had a bunch of them, because like every 2000s kid, I had a huge NASCAR obsession. At one point, I could tell you everything you wanted to know about Jeff Gordon and Bobby LaFonte. I think this may be Bobby LaFonte, if I'm not mistaken. Whatever guy was the Home Depot guy. Anyways, they made these beautifully detailed NASCAR figures. The head sculpts on them are insane. They look just like the racers. They're a little fragile. As you can see, I broke the hands off of this one. What are you gonna do? But there happened to be a promotion at the time where NASCAR was really getting behind Shrek 2. Could a better match be made in the 2000s? You have NASCAR and Shrek. So maybe it was some sort of way of getting these middle-class suburban southern families into Shrek by integrating it into NASCAR. But this was a big deal. There was a lot of Shrek NASCAR cross-promotion. Not only was the car wrapped with Shrek, but they made baseball caps, jackets, toothpaste, everything. And that deal included McFarlane's action figures. So McFarlane adorned their NASCAR action figures with Shrek graphics, giving us this nicely detailed NASCAR racer with Shrek on the back. So that's a fun, neat oddity. But what really makes this figure something special is that they actually came packaged with action figures from the first Shrek movie, dressed up in NASCAR uniforms. Yes, we have Donkey, brought to you by Home Depot, and Bobby LaFonte, if I'm not mistaken. I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong. My NASCAR knowledge, it's a little rusty. It's a little rusties since 2005. But this is neat, but this is the real showstopper. We get Donkey, and this is just an action figure from the first Shrek movie, but with a sculpted on, I don't know what this is, a towel? Is this something they wear in horse races, right? Don't the horses wear this and they get sponsored? I have no clue. But it's Donkey brought to you by Home Depot. And it's so lovely, and it's so 2000s. I absolutely love it. It's unabashedly corporate and capitalistic, and I think it's so cheesy. I love it. I absolutely love that this exists, and that we got to this zenith of culture in 2004. And aside from just being wonderfully stupid, it's just a good action figure. This Donkey is great. Look at that head sculpt. There's so much character in that. I actually want to show you here. This is the Shrek 2 Hasbro Donkey figure. They tried to give him rooted hair, and I don't know, I just think it looks terrible. Especially when compared to this. Look at the difference in donkeys between McFarlane and Hasbro. I mean, it's unbelievable the detail McFarlane had that Hasbro dropped. Yeah, Hasbro's got some more articulation and the colors are a little brighter, but I mean, the head sculpt is no match. McFarlane totally one-upped Hasbro. And plus, Hasbro Donkey, well, he does not play NASCAR. Drive NASCAR? Part of NASCAR? But he does play football. Yeah, there was a Super Bowl Donkey action figure that Hasbro made. I don't have that one, but it was actually the last figure of the Shrek 2 line. Pretty odd. So yeah, I guess Donkey has a history of having odd sports-related action figures. I mean, what's next? Is Donkey gonna be part of Space Jam?
Pass me the ball, doll.
Don't ever call me doll. I'll kill you! Coffee break. Got my wolf mug here.
Coffee.
Speaking of McFarlane Toys and how nice their Shrek product was, I have a Plush Mcfallen Toy from the release of the original Shrek movie of Princess Fiona. And she even has her original tag, like that, with the McFarlane Toys on it. See if we can get the camera to focus. There we go. And this is just a plush doll. She has a sculpted head, but she doesn't actually have a doll body. It's all plush. Even her little plush hands. And I know that's goofy. She basically has little oven mitts, and she looks quite ridiculous. But I'm willing to forget the ridiculous of the plush body for that head sculpt that I think is absolutely stellar. They have really captured Fiona, and they've even rooted her hair in such a way that it parts just like the animation model. I can't get over how good this head sculpt is. And man, does it make me wish we got a full 12-inch Fiona fashion doll from McFarlane, because that would have been absolutely amazing. But even as it is, I'm willing to let that go in favor of this 8-inch plush doll that I just think is wonderful. It's such a wonderful sculpture of the character and really captures her features and the beauty of human Fiona. Yeah, I think she's quite pretty in the face. It's just a really, really nice toy. McFarlane really made amazing toys for the first Shrek, especially when you realize that at the time, McFarlane did not really make kids' toys. They were doing Spawn, they did the Spawn movie, and I know some older kids in the 90s did play with the Spawn toys, but they were really doing stuff for collectors. So for them to take a kids movie and make such an awesome toy line right out of the gate, their first kids toy line, I mean, they really just nailed it. And I really wish they had stuck with it for all of the Shrek movies. I have a feeling the decision for McFarlane to lose the Shrek license has nothing to do with McFarlane Toys themselves, and simply Shrek making a lot more money than anticipated. You see, DreamWorks did not have a lot of confidence in Shrek at all. As a matter of fact, the movie had such a troubled production of a decade of troubled production, that if you were working on the Prince of Egypt, yeah, the Prince of Egypt, and you made a couple mistakes, you would receive punishment by being moved from the Prince of Egypt animation team to the Shrek team. And the animators called that getting Shreked. So yeah, punishment for failing on the Prince of Egypt was working on Shrek. Now that's kind of a win-win scenario. I think both those movies are two of the greatest movies of all time. But it's funny that at the time, they had so little confidence in the movie. They viewed it as punishment for their animators. Pretty crazy stuff. So yeah, I'm sure when the movie came around and was finished, they had this kind of edgy adult fairy tale movie. And they didn't know what to do with it. So they probably looked at McFarlane, and you know, McFarlane's made some more adult action figures. He's even made some raunchy fairy tale figures. And they probably thought, well, this movie's probably gonna bomb at the box office, so let McFarlane have the license. Let him do his thing, because he was really passionate about these toys, these Shrek toys. And, you know, he'll just make a nice little toy line, we'll make some money, and we'll move on to the next thing. Well, Shrek came out, and Shrek was a phenomenon, so I'm sure the licensing fees for Shrek toys went through the roof, to the point where only a mega conglomerate like Hasbro could afford to make Shrek toys. And they made some plastic crud. So, what are you gonna do? With success comes drawbacks, unfortunately. But before Shrek took over the world in the 2000s, and DreamWorks didn't really know what to make of Shrek, we got this wonderful toy line from Mcfallen Toys, which gave us, to this day, what I think is one of the best Fiona toys ever made. It's really awesome. Now, there is an Ogre Fiona doll that's a similar size, but that wasn't made by Mcfallen. That was made by a small independent toy company that teamed up with Blockbuster Video to sell those in their video stores. I don't have that doll, but that is a full plastic doll, not a plush doll with a plastic head. And I have heard that doll is the best Ogre Fiona toy ever made. So, if you want the best versions of Ogre Fiona and Human Fiona, I guess the 8 to 9 inch doll market is the way to go. So if you have a nice toy like this Fiona, how do you get a Shrek that goes with her? Well, Mcfallen Toys did make an 8 inch Shrek doll, but I don't have it, so I can't really give you a review on it. However, for the release of Shrek 2, we did get an 8 inch Shrek plush that scales perfectly with this Fiona. Now, this Shrek is kind of a one-off. It just exists on its own. Hold on a moment. We have a sudden distraction. Sudden distraction has ended, and we resume back to your Shrek program. So, a couple things I got wrong. This isn't for Shrek 2. It's for Shrek the Third. And all I had to do was look at the tag that's still on this toy. Boy, am I stupid. It was made by a company called Novelty Toys, which I've never heard of. And weirdly enough, has a security tag on it. Who would security tag this cheap little plush? What on earth? Maybe this was sold at like a theme park, where they security tag everything. Because I've worked at theme park gift stores, and man, they security tag the hell out of everything. So, maybe this was sold at like Universal Studios, when they had the Shrek attraction. Anyways, they gave us this one-off plush for Shrek the Third that is totally awesome. Not only is, again, the costume nicely detailed, texture on the vest, it's kind of got that scale texture, you know? A really good head sculpt. Yeah, he's doing the classic DreamWorks smirk, you know. He's doing the face. But he is perfectly scaled with this Fiona that at this point would have come out 6.5 years earlier. Like, he can even, like, pick her up and carry her when they escape the Dragon's Keep at the end of the first Shrek movie. The dragon's like, and Shrek's like, I have to go save my ass. And she's like, you're the worst knight ever. And Shrek's like, no, I gotta save my ass. As in, like, donkey. It's great, you know. If you ever watched the first Shrek, go watch it. It's amazing. You will be pleasantly surprised how much they got right in that first movie. So, yeah, I love this Shrek and Fiona. I think they look really good. And they're just really nice Shrek and Fiona dolls. What is there to say? So, pick both these up. They display quite nicely on a shelf. So, our final neat Shrek item, and it's not anything I remember from my youth or childhood, because it is perhaps the newest Shrek action figures on the market, and that is the figures for Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. Anyone go see this in the movie theater last year? I'm sure you did, because it made hundreds of millions of dollars. So, these are two figures that were sold at AMC movie theaters if you bought the kids meal as a kids meal promotion. We have Puss in Boots, who is in his Last Wish style, meaning his fur is darker and his hat is different. Yeah, there's a difference between Last Wish Puss in Boots and the Shrek movies Puss in Boots. They look a little different. So this is the only figure of Puss in Boots in that unique style, and I think it's a pretty good figure. And we have Kitty Softpaws in her mask and cape and gear when she is a thief. So they're pretty good figures, and sadly they're the only figures we got for Puss in Boots The Last Wish. I don't know what was up with the licensing for this movie, but it seems that no toy company wanted to sign on and make Puss in Boots toys. And AMC Movie Theaters is the only company that gave us figures of an incredible movie. It really is a shame. I would love action figures of Death and Big Jack Horner and Goldilocks and the three Mafia Bears. Having them all on a shelf together next to my Shrek figures would be incredible. And my goodness, whoever gets the Shrek license next please rectify that mistake and give us some proper Puss in Boots action figures. As these are, I can't really complain. For kids' meal promotions, they're pretty good. And I have a funny story about these. On the night of the movie's opening, I went Christmas Day to see this movie. They had the banner up for the kids' meal. It said AMC Chicken Tender Kids Meal. Purchase and receive a Puss in Boots figure. And you know, the kids' meal is like $17 because it's the movie theater and they're there to totally gouge you. So I'm like, oh my god, I gotta spend $30 to get both these figures. And I gotta end up with a bunch of chicken strips I'm not gonna eat. Because who wants to have heartburn during Puss in Boots? So I go up to the counter, and the counter lady, very pretty lady, she was quite pretty, so I go up to the counter, and I'm like, oh, hello, I want those Puss in Boots action figures, but I don't want to buy $30 worth of chicken strips. Can I just, like, buy the action figures? And she's like, well, and she kind of gives me a weird look, like she raises an eyebrow, like she does the DreamWorks face, look at me, like something's going on. She's like, well, I think I could sell you these Puss in Boots action figures. And I'm like, yes, just sell the figures to me. I don't care, I'll pay $8 for these, like, I just want these figures. So, she says, I can sell you, they're about $9 each. And I'm like, $9? Well, I'll just buy the Kitty Soft Paws one because I have 1,000 Puss in Boots action figures in my collection. And, you know, that was really dumb of me. I should have just bought instantly both because these figures have become quite rare. So anyways, I tell her, I just want Kitty Soft Paws. I just want the Kitty Soft Paws figure, like the weirdo I am. And she's like, well, I guess I can give you Puss in Boots 2 for the same price. And she takes figures, she bundles them, she hands them over to me, and like she raises an eyebrow, and it's like the most sexual transaction ever. I don't know, I swear I'm not making up in this head. This lady like made all these moves on me. I'm not complaining, okay? Hey look, I got nothing wrong with this. She was a nice looking lady, and here's the deal, right? With women, if you're gonna make a move on me, if you throw in some Puss in Boots and Kitty Soft Paws action figures, you've got a much better chance. Like, I can't say no to free toys. So yeah, I think she even gave me her employee discount. I remember it coming out to like $6.50 for both figures when the kids' meal was like $17. And even the individual toys, because the manager told her, like, if you want to sell the action figures, they're $9 each. And she's like, okay, I'll sell them the action figures for $9 each. Well, she ended up, like, charging me $6 and gave me both figures. She just kind of slid them across the table and winked at me. That was an incredible experience. And now whenever I look at these Puss in Boots action figures, I think of that experience in that theater night. I never even got her name or her Discord. What a shame. But hey, I got the action figures, and that's what matters, is I got the toys right here, and they're great. Also, they made them for the first Puss in Boots movie too. So if you don't want the Last Wish versions, you can just buy on eBay the AMC promo for the first movie. Interesting thing though, she doesn't come off her stand, but these new ones do come off their stand. So, speculation, she doesn't come off her stand because that would have infringed on action figure copyright because there were toys for the first Puss in Boots movie. But there were no toys for this movie, so they could come off their stands. Right? That's what I think, at least. I mean, how else do you explain this figure not being able to come off her stand? But these two can. So yeah, these are the 3 Puss in Boots movie theater promos I have, and the interesting story behind them. And that about concludes the 5 Shrek toys I think you will like. Now, I said think. You may not have liked all these. You may have absolutely hated a few of them. And if you did, let me know in the comments and tell me why you didn't like these toys. Or tell me which ones you did like. Or even better than that, rather than endlessly talk about me and how great I am, why not mention some of your own Shrek toys? Did you have any Shrek toys growing up? Did you play with your Shrek toys, or did you collect them? And which ones did you have? I'd love to know. Also, What other videos would you like to see like this? 5 Space Jam toys I think you would like? 5 How to Train Your Dragon toys? I don't know, it could be anything. I have lots of cartoon and fantasy figures. After all, that's the channel's mantra. We collect fantasy and we collect furries. So that's pretty much all I have for today. I'm going to try to go back to more regular uploads, talking about all sorts of fun cartoon collectibles. This has been Austin the Brimstone, collecting all things furry, or scaly in this case, collecting all things scaly and fantasy.